Hi everyone, Saul Kirsch with Double Alpha Academy here to introduce to you today our brand new Double Alpha Powder Checker. Now the Powder Checker by Double Alpha uses a very different technology to what's available on the market from other manufacturers. We use a magnetic reed sensor which allows you to adjust the forgiveness or the sensitivity of your powder checker so that you can decide how often and how easily you get an alert for the powder level in your case. In this video I'm going to present to you the product, show you how to set it up, show you how to convert it for rifle, and basically teach you how to use this new powder checker which is now available online at doublealpha.biz. Now the powder checker ships ready to use, set up for pistol, but you also have this replacement plunger which is designed for the longer rifle cases. You have a user manual which will give you the step-by-step instruction of how to set up, which is also explained here in this video. Here you can see 3 examples of cases which need to be checked: no powder, correct charge, and double charge. We'll see after we set them up how the powder check can pick up on the issues and allow the correct charge to go through without a warning. So the setup of this device is very simple, and really it's a basic electronic circuit here which has 2 switches. One is a sensor switch which is activated by the plunger. Now the plunger is lifted by the rim of the case, so the rim of the case will make contact inside the dropper with the rim of the plunger, lifting the plunger up so that it activates the switch. When that switch is activated, we get an audible and a visual alarm telling us that there's an issue with our powder, unless the magnet is lifted to the correct height opposite the reed sensor, which stops the alarm from sounding. So only when the magnet is in the wrong position, in other words the powder charge is too high or too low, and the micro switch has been activated, in other words there was a case of the correct length which lifted the plunger and activated it, then the alarm will sound. You obviously want to assemble this into your reloading press. You will need an available station in order to set this up. You should use the station immediately after the powder dropper. In some cases, you may then need to combine your seating and crimping actions into one die in order to free up the space that's required. I'll show you how to dismantle this, which is a good place to start, because when you assemble this onto the machine, it's a lot easier to do once you remove the electronic box. You'll use a 2.5mm key to open the magnet holder. You can then remove the magnet off the rod. The rod can be extracted. The electronic box is connected to the bracket by means of a clip. You squeeze back on that little lever there, and then you can push the electronic box up and off from the bracket. At this point, you can also remove the long pistol plunger. If you wanted to set up this die for use with rifle, you would replace the pistol die with the rifle die, reassemble the electronic box, and now you would use the plunger upside down without utilizing the plastic shoe. The plastic shoe is used for the pistol calibers, but is too large to fit into the mouth of a rifle case. So you would then slide the magnet onto the rod upside down, insert that into the die, and set it up with this assembly in the same way we're going to show the pistol setup now for rifle use. So going back, we'll remove the box. Now, since I want to be able to screw this die into my available station on my reloading press, this bracket might interfere while I rotate it. It'll hit the powder hopper. It'll be a lot easier to remove this, and what I like to do is open up this side screw over here. Again, this is 2.5mm hex key. This bracket here is fairly firm, but if you use a little bit of force you can get that off the die, and now you'll easily be able to turn and adjust the die into place without having to worry about the bracket interfering. Let's take a look at how we set this up on the Dillon machine. Okay, so we're going to be setting up the die in the available station immediately after the powder hopper. Since I've dismantled the electronic box, it's now easy to turn the die. I didn't have to do that. I could have turned the die with the electronic box in place. I could loosen the side screw on the bracket. If I loosen the side screw on the bracket, I can then turn the die body independently of the bracket, but it's just more difficult to do. And since I know I need to turn the die a long way down, I'm going to choose to do that without the bracket in place. Now that I'm more or less in the location where I expect to be, I'm going to put that bracket back. I can insert the screw. Again, I'm going to leave it loose for now, but I'll just put that screw back into place. Place the pistol plunger where it belongs. The vertical rod goes in from below, so I'm going to let that go through first. I can hold that in place and position a case with the correct amount of powder into position, and then just bring the machine to the end of stroke. Now, with the electronic box assembled back onto the bracket, what I'm looking to see is that as I turn the die down, the flange, the top of the plunger, is going to gradually lift up until it activates the switch. I can see that's happening already now. The plunger is being lifted as I turn the die down. And here pretty much I've reached a point where I've activated the die all the way. In this position, my die is now adjusted correctly to the right height. The rim of the case has lifted the plunger high enough to activate the arm of the switch. I can actually hear that clicking as the switch is activated. I might decide to make sure that I've gone far enough. This is already turned down far enough, but at this position I'm happy with the activation. Now, the plunger rod is resting on top of the powder charge inside the case. The reason the sensor is not sounding an alarm at the moment is because the reed sensor needs the magnet in the vicinity in order to sound the beep. What you can see here is that the beep will stop only when the magnet is correctly positioned opposite the reed sensor. So there's a window there where it does not beep, and I'm going to look to be in the middle of that window, maybe a little closer to the top, and in that position I'm going to tighten the side screw on the magnet to keep it in place. A unique feature of this powder checker is the ability to change the sensitivity or determine how forgiving the checker is to various levels of powder. The adjustment is made by turning the screw at the back here of the electronic assembly, and you can see the little indicator over there is going to slide forward and backwards in the track. As the screw is turned clockwise, the reed sensor slides further away from the magnet, and in fact the powder checker becomes less sensitive. It is more forgiving and will sound fewer false alarms if the powder level is slightly higher or lower. In this case, you can see I've moved the sensor further back, and now the powder check will accept a range which is fairly large, perhaps 5 millimeters in height, without sounding an alarm. If I turn that sensor back towards the increased level of sensitivity, towards the maximum, you will now see that that window is considerably smaller. Just approximately 2.5 millimeters is an acceptable height without the alarm sounding. As the case lifts up, the alarm does not sound, because at the moment that the lower switch is activated correctly, the magnet is correctly positioned to avoid the alarm sounding. Now, if I were to place a case which has no powder, what will happen is the magnet will not lift up high enough. The plunger will be lifted up and the alarm should sound. And I can check the other scenario where there is too much powder in the case. Here we have a double charge, less likely to happen in 9mm, but a common problem in other calibers. And now the alarm should sound. Again, the rim of the case will lift the plunger to the correct height, but the alarm will sound because the magnet will be lifted too high. We can then confirm the situation is correct by again placing the round with the correct charge into the station, and again you can see the alarm does not sound because the charge in the case is correct. So I now have the double alpha magnetic powder check set up correctly to where it won't sound when the charge in the case is correct. It will sound when the charge is too high or too low. An interesting feature of this sensor is that when there's no case present, the alarm will not sound either way, simply because the plunger is not being lifted by the rim of a case. There is no case, so you don't get any alarm sounding when there's no case and no powder to check. So this is a correctly adjusted double alpha magnetic powder checker on a 650 machine. Simple and easy setup, requires only the one station, requires no holes or other special features in the tool head, so you can use this with any reloading press. All you need is an available station immediately after your powder drop. So that's the new double alpha magnetic powder checker, which is now available online at doublealpha.biz.